Now, the future of Iran's nuclear stockpile is a key sticking point in negotiations between Tehran and Washington. Tehran is believed to be holding an estimated 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, a threshold that means it can much more quickly reach the 90% required for weapons-grade material. Israel, the US and other Western countries say Iran's enrichment is well above the 3 to 5% needed for a civilian nuclear energy program. They say Iran is seeking a nuclear weapon. Tehran rejects that claim. It says its nuclear program is for civilian purposes only, including for medical isotopes, and it does not intend to build any weapons. Now joining me is Rafael Grossi. He's the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog. Welcome to the show. Clearly, the nuclear file is going to be one of the biggest sticking points, but one of the most important pieces of the puzzle in any deal. But what is the IAEA looking for when it comes to that deal?
The IAEA would be the indispensable guarantor that any agreement that the two come to will be a real one and not an illusion of an agreement. In this area, you were describing material, but above and beyond that, there are facilities, there's infrastructure, there are so many things. And one has to make sure that whatever is agreed on paper is going to be complied with.
But this is going to be very difficult for you because of the destruction of Bushehr, the destruction of Natanz and the destruction of Fordow, all key nuclear plants for the Iranians. Can you get in to make sure that that compliance, that guarantee is going to happen?
Yes, we can. In fact, we should. There may be, and you're right in pointing that out, that especially after the 12-day war last year, this war has also included hits on nuclear facilities, but at a much lesser degree than last year, which was really on that. And the facilities were Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, not Bushehr, which is a nuclear power plant. We can come to that because there has been a problem there as well. But these places, of course, there has been physical damage. In some parts, these places you have to imagine, and the audience, not as one place. These are compounds. There are many buildings. There are many places, facilities, labs, plants, fuel fabrication plants, tunnels. I mean, it's a network of places. So some of them have been badly damaged, some of them less, and so on. So what we need is to have access to the places we need in terms of this infrastructure I'm referring to, or the stockpile that you were mentioning just now.
Now, one of the things that you're going to need to do as the guarantor of any deal is make sure about compliance. But we seem to be at a moment here where Donald Trump and the Iranians are negotiating a deal. Do you have any say in that?
Not a say. We have been, one has to be very clear on one thing. We are not a party to this negotiation. We have participated until the last round, which ended in February. This one, we haven't been at the table. I am in contact separately with the two sides, consulting, talking about technical issues here and there. So where we have an added value, I would say, because at the end of the day, the recipe of this agreement is a matter of a political decision by Iran and the United States, where they can meet. What we do is sometimes indicate technical parameters which are indispensable, because sometimes you may have an idea of what you want to check and it is technically unfeasible or not verifiable, and something which is not verifiable, it will lead you to a bad agreement.
Donald Trump wants the nuclear dust, as he calls it, the enriched uranium. He wants to take it out of Iran. Is that viable?
Well, it's difficult. It's not impossible. There are different alternatives. One is to take the material and take it somewhere else. Not easy, because this is in gas form, and this is highly contaminant, and it's not an easy operation. Could be done, answering to your question. But there are other alternatives that have been contemplated, like downblending it. You were saying 60% close to military degree, which is 90%, very close to that degree. It could be downblended to a much lesser degree, which would make it more manageable. So all of these things are the things we have been discussing with them. In any case, to facilitate, to make this political decision, if they come to it, possible.
Is it frustrating, though, that you do all of the technical side of this, but you're not involved in the political side of this? Because you seem to have the expertise as the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Our contribution to this is to make it viable and to make it possible. And this is our way to contribute to the political decision, because sometimes there are moments, it has happened in the past, and not only in the case of Iran and the United States, as we know. For example, I'm here because of a different situation at the moment that you are living in this part of the world with the attacks on nuclear power plants. So what we do oftentimes is to offer ideas, to put ideas, trying to identify what is the intention to try to facilitate the agreement. This is the bridge building that goes in an international organization like ours.
But you're not reinventing the wheel here. There was a deal in 2015 that Donald Trump pulled out. Is that deal the blueprint for any next deal? You've already done a lot of the work, surely.
Absolutely not.
Right. Okay. Tell
Absolutely
me more.
not. And the reason is not a matter of political taste or my own idea, please. It's because that agreement was predicated upon a number of assumptions that Iran was going to be doing certain things, that Iran had certain technologies, that the infrastructure was such. Today is a completely different situation that we have. First of all, very important, this is a post-war agreement, if it comes to that, which we have to bear in mind, against the backdrop of physical damage, as we were just saying. Then Iran, at the same time, has grown enormously in its technologies and capacities. So all the parameters that you had at that time, you had a certain number of centrifuges, these machines that spin very fast and enriched uranium. Well, it was an old technology. Now they have performant, very modern, very fast machines, so you may need much less than in the past. So JCPOA was what it was. Now you need something different.
And what is that something different for you? Your slogan for the International Atomic Energy Agency is atoms for peace.
And development.
And development. And Iran says it needs nuclear power for the development of its own country. Yeah. Can you see a situation where Iran survives with a civilian nuclear program? Because the Americans don't seem to see that.
They do. They have a nuclear power plant, an operating nuclear power plant in Bushehr. In fact, there is a new unit which is under construction, perhaps not so much now because there is fear that there could be attack, and Rosatom, the Russian very important company that is building this second reactor. So the civilian nuclear program is not under discussion here. What has been under discussion is the fact that there are certain activities that are raising questions. This very high degree of enrichment. In your introduction, you were saying, normally a nuclear reactor does not require 60% or above that. So there are some eyebrows that are about this. And also that there has been let's say, a patchy history of compliance. In the case of Iran, on occasion it has been found in non-compliance with some of their obligations. So it's been a complex history. But nevertheless, what we all want now, irrespective of the past, is a good agreement, is a diplomatic agreement, because at the end of the day, as we have seen, you can have a war, but certain fundamental problems will remain, simply because you cannot unlearn what you have learned. Iran has the technologies, Iran has the capacities, and what we need is an arrangement, an agreement, a political way to continue in peace.
What are your thoughts on enrichment as a political tool? Iran has said in the past that it was sticking with the JCPOA. American assessment said that it was doing that. Once the agreement was disbanded by Donald Trump. Iran moved to 60%. They say, because they needed to do the research, but a lot of people say, actually, this was a negotiating tactic. Let's get to 60%, let's get people around the table, and then we can, bring it down. Do you have any sympathy with that argument?
Well, for me, as Director General of the IAEA, to start judging intentions would be a bit tricky. I can have my opinions, but I shouldn't do it.
Well, what are your opinions, if you don't mind me asking? What are your opinions?
My opinion is that I have to perform well, and I have to provide a service which is impartial and technically impeccable, so that they can do what they must do. Iran and any other country can enrich, can do many things, but what you have to do, because this is the deal in peaceful nuclear energy, you have the technology, but you are accountable, totally accountable for it. So every gram of what you have must be accounted for by the IAEA. When problems start in this field, then we've seen historically with Iran and other countries that things tend to go bad. So I hope that we have all learned from all those experiences and that we can move now. We've heard President Trump today saying and repeating that the conversations are moving at a fast pace. We trust that this is going to be the case.
Rafael Grossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.